To support the channel, you can donate by clicking on the link in the description. Hello everyone. Today I'm going to refute pantheism. Pantheistic ideas have been around for a very long time. We see pantheism in both Hinduism and Taoism, and philosophers like Spinoza and Bruno both wrote extensively about pantheism. And even in today's popular culture, we often see pantheistic notions mentioned and represented, as well as alluded to. People will often talk about the universe itself as if it has causal power and so forth, which is a pantheistic concept whether they realize it or not. The question, though, is do we have good reason to believe that pantheism is true? The answer is no, and I'm going to explain why. Pantheism is the view that God and the universe are one and the same. This means that God is equal to the universe, and the universe is equal to God. There's no distinction at all, like in theism, for example. Theists believe that God transcends the universe, which means he's beyond the universe, whereas pantheists believe that God is immanent within the universe, which means, according to them, God is present within the universe. But since pantheists believe that God and the universe are one and the same, they believe the universe is eternal, which of course follows from the idea that the universe is God, and vice versa. Therefore, if it is the case that the universe isn't eternal, meaning it hasn't always existed, but came into existence, then pantheism is necessarily false. So today, I'm going to refute pantheism by substantiating the claim that the universe did in fact come into existence, which means it had a beginning and therefore can't be eternal, which of course means that the universe can't be God. I will support the claim that the universe came into existence by presenting an argument and defending it. The argument is stated as follows. Premise 1. The universe came into existence. Premise 2. If the universe came into existence, then pantheism is false. Conclusion. Therefore, pantheism is false. This is a logically valid deductive argument, which means the conclusion follows necessarily. The only question is, are the premises sound? Let's find out. Premise 2 actually follows necessarily from premise 1. So let's examine premise 1 first. Premise 1, the claim that the universe came into existence or began to exist, is supported by an overwhelming amount of evidence. I'll start with the scientific evidence. Number 1, the expansion of the universe. The expansion of the universe suggests that the universe came into existence. Galaxies are moving apart from each other. The further apart from each other they are, the faster they recede. This expansion was first observed by Edwin Hubble in 1929, and it implies that the universe was smaller and denser in the past, which indicates that it had a beginning, which means it came into existence. Number 2, the cosmic microwave background, CBM. The CBM is the faint microwave radiation that pervades the universe. It is thought to be the afterglow of the Big Bang. The temperature and distribution of the CBM supply strong evidence for the Big Bang theory, and the Big Bang theory shows that the universe originated, as in began, from an extremely hot and dense state. Number 3, general relativity. The theory of gravity that Einstein developed also indicates that the universe came into existence. Number 4, the Borde-Guth-Vilenkin theorem. The BGV theorem shows that any universe that has been expanding on average throughout its history cannot be past infinite or eternal, but must have a space-time boundary. All of this scientific evidence supports the notion that the universe did in fact come into existence. But on top of all of the overwhelming scientific evidence for the finitude of the universe, there's also philosophical arguments for the notion that the universe must have came into existence. From a philosophical standpoint, the idea that the universe is eternal or infinite is problematic because if the universe never came into existence, but has always existed, it would be the case that there have been an infinite number of past events prior to today, because the universe does of course exist in time. This is problematic because when it comes to the postulated existence of actual infinites, you run into absurdities. You see, when it comes to the concept of infinity, there's what's known as a potential infinite and an actual infinite. And there's actually a strong distinction between a potential infinite and an actual infinite. A potential infinite refers to a process that can continue indefinitely, but without ever reaching a final state. Simply put, a potential infinite is something that tends toward infinity, but doesn't reach it, whereas an actual infinite refers to an existing infinity, as in an infinity that is complete and whole, and not just a process of becoming, like a potential infinite. A potential infinite is possible, but an actual infinite is not. With all of that in mind, here's one philosophical argument for the finitude of the universe that was put forth by the Muslim philosopher Al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali argued that it's impossible to pass through an actual infinite. Al-Ghazali pointed out that the series of past events has been created by adding one event after another. So the succession of past events is like a chain of dominoes falling one after another until the last domino, which is today, is reached. You see, before today got here, there was yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that, and so on, which of course led up to today, the present moment. However, Al-Ghazali argued that no series that is created by adding one member after another can be actually infinite. It's simply not possible to pass through an infinite number of elements one at a time. This can be demonstrated pretty easily by attempting to count to infinity. The problem, however, with trying to count to infinity is there's always an infinity of numbers left to count. So, if it's not possible to count to infinity, how could it be possible to count down from infinity? Well, it's not possible, and here's why. To count down from infinity, you would have to count through all of the negative numbers ending at 0. -4, -3, -2, -1, 0. This obviously isn't possible, though, for the simple reason that before you could reach 0, you'd have to reach -1. And before -1, you'd have to reach -2. And before that, -3, and so forth, all the way back to infinity. So before any number could be counted or reached, an infinity of numbers will have to have been reached. This, of course, means that you would get driven back and back into the past so that no number could ever be reached or counted. What follows from this is that the final domino in a series could never fall if an infinity of dominoes had to fall first. Therefore, today, the present moment, could never have been reached. But of course, today, the present moment is here. Therefore, the series of past events cannot be infinite, but must be finite, which means the universe must have came into existence, which means it had a beginning. Based on the evidence that I've presented for the finitude of the universe, we can safely conclude that the first premise of my argument, namely that the universe came into existence, stands. But how exactly does it follow from that pantheism is false? Well, like I said before, pantheism teaches that the universe is God and is therefore eternal. So, if the universe isn't eternal, it follows that it also isn't God. This conclusion follows from the very line of reasoning that pantheists engage in regarding the universe. But more importantly, it follows necessarily from a metaphysical standpoint. You see, if the universe came into existence, and as we have seen, the evidence makes it clear that it did, then it must necessarily be the case that something brought the universe into existence, which means that there is something beyond the universe. Wherefore, the universe can't be God, because nothing is beyond God. However, over the years, there have been objections raised against the notion that whatever comes into existence must have been caused or brought into existence. But with a quick analysis, we will clearly see that such objections fall short. There are only 3 possible options when it comes to something coming into existence. Option number 1, nothing brings something into existence. The problem with this option, though, is that it's simply metaphysically impossible for nothing to bring something into existence. Nothing is non-being, which is the absence of anything. And the absence of anything can't cause anything because a cause can only give or impart what it has. And nothing doesn't have anything to give. So this possible option fails. Option number 2, something brings itself into existence. In his book, The Grand Design, Stephen Hawking famously argued that the universe could have created itself from nothing. This, however, is simply not possible, because for something to bring itself into existence necessarily presupposes that it existed before it existed in order to bring itself into existence, which is utterly incoherent. So this option fails as well. Option number 3. Something brings something into existence. The only option left is that only something can bring something into existence. This conclusion is both metaphysically and logically sound, as well as supported by empirical evidence, although it doesn't rely on empirical evidence, since it is a metaphysical principle. Therefore, something must have brought the universe into existence. So, when it comes to the universe, we have established that it must have came into existence, which proves that pantheism must necessarily be false, since it means that the universe can't be eternal and therefore can't be God. Therefore, both premise 1 and premise 2 stand, which means the conclusion that pantheism is false stands. However, we have also established that the fact that the universe came into existence proves that something must have brought it into existence. But we can actually take it a step further and conclude that this something, which is beyond the universe, because a cause must necessarily be outside of its effect, is in fact God. The reason for this is because this cause would obviously have to be outside of the universe, since it caused the universe. But that means that this cause would be outside of time, space, and matter, which necessarily means that the cause is timeless, spaceless, and immaterial. The cause would also have to be extremely powerful, since it caused the entire universe to come into existence. This cause would also have to be personal for a number of reasons, such as, number 1, the cause chose to create the universe. Impersonal forces have no ability to choose. Number 2, the cause is immaterial and is therefore beyond all physical reality. This means that there are only 2 types of things that this cause could be: an abstract object like a number or a mind. The cause can't be an abstract object like a number, though, because abstract objects don't have any causal power. Therefore, the cause must necessarily be a mind, which means the cause must be personal rather than impersonal. Number 3, the cause must also be personal because there are only 2 types of explanations: scientific explanations and personal explanations. Scientific explanations describe how pre-existing conditions and natural laws cause something. Personal explanations describe how an agent or that agent's will causes something. There can't be a scientific explanation for the first state of the universe because the first state of the universe can't be explained in terms of earlier initial conditions and natural laws leading to it, because there couldn't have been earlier initial conditions and natural laws beyond the first state of the universe. Therefore, the cause of the universe must necessarily be personal. So what we have here is a transcendent, timeless, spaceless, immaterial, extremely powerful, and personal cause. But for such a cause to exist is for God to exist. Therefore, God exists, and not a pantheistic God, but a God who is wholly distinct from the universe, as in beyond it. At this point, we can safely conclude that based on the evidence, there is no good reason for anyone to believe in pantheism. So pantheism is refuted. However, we can also conclude that the evidence actually points to a transcendent God, which of course is consistent with theism. But to go further, we would have to get into other arguments and lines of evidence, which is beyond the scope of this video. But I may do that in another video, because there's definitely a lot more to be said, because I do of course believe that Christian theism specifically is the correct view, which I think is substantiated by the totality of the evidence. Well guys, that's it for this video. So as always, let me know what you think, and please remember to like and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, there's actually a link in the description that you can click on to donate. Thank you very much.